And welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. Happy Sunday for those of you who are joining in. We are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and y'all, I'm so honored that you would join me here today. I know that time is precious. It's actually probably one of the greatest it's one of our greatest assets. Where are we actually going to invest our time for the greatest yield on return? And so I know that it's no small uh, yield or give rather for us to be spending time together this morning. And so I want to just quickly do a dive on why this show exists, because it is so important that we remember why we do anything to propel us to be fully engaged and fully present in whatever activity we are going to spend that precious time on. And so our why for this morning, I actually just shared about this morning on LinkedIn and Facebook. Yesterday, I got together with an amazing, brilliant woman here in Phoenix, Arizona, and she's a pastor of a local church. And she also is the CEO of Dream Institute, which is an organization dedicated to helping women coming out of human trafficking and their families recover. And the work that they're doing is significant. She's working to set up multiple branches of this, and she's making significant and colossal impact. And as we were talking, one of the things that she mentioned, she was reflecting on a woman close to her who lived the majority of her life kind of in service of her family and raising her kids. And she was beautiful and shining and happy and just loved life. And then in the latter years of her life, she started to go inward. And basically, what she said was, now it's my time. It's my time to figure out what I want and to do what I want. And over the years, she just turned into someone who was so miserable, someone who was so selfish. And it reminded me of this book by David Brooks called The Second Mountain. And he talks about the concept of there being two different mountains in our lives. The first one we summit is the one of self, the one of really knowing what we want for the sake of our own success, our own fame, our own desire and admiration. And then the second mountain is once we realize that that first mountain is not going to satiate us and satisfy us, then it's the pursuit of the second mountain, which is realizing, almost awakening to, man, there is so much joy to be found in doing good for the community and in service of the community. And as we were talking, I just was reflecting on something that has really stood out to me over the last few years as I've done the work to know myself. A lot of people, and women specifically, but I also would say men too, actually have grown up on the second mountain. We actually are oriented towards others. We're oriented towards how people are feeling, what their contribution is to society and to the community, to the family at large, to the business. And they actually have no connection with themselves. And just like how I had to do this, it was like I grew up on the second mountain, oriented towards everybody else. And then I realized, oh, wait, but if I'm going to be a person, I actually need to go inward and know myself too. And so what that looked like was actually returning to the first mountain, summiting that one, getting to know, well, who am I? What are my gifts? What was I uniquely created to do? Because once we know our unique offer effectively, then we can go give it and contribute it to society and to the world and fulfill on the mission of why we're here in the first place. Yet for so many of us, we solely exist on that second mountain in servitude, in acquiescence to the world around us. And in all intents and purposes, there's something actually very admirable about that, to sacrifice, to live a life of servitude. Yet, just like that woman, and just like I experienced, is that actually to reverse engineer is dangerous. For us to live with no connection to ourselves, to live with kind of our body, mind, soul, spirit shut off and void of having a voice in relation to how we encounter other people, is actually really harmful. Because what ends up happening for so many people is a multitude of outcomes, but a few in particular is that we actually can end up getting resentful. We can end up getting we're not getting our needs met. And so we end up getting burnt out. And just like this woman who was giving, then she was finally done. Finally, she like reached the max. She was depleted. She was exhausted. And then she did a complete 180, which really did so much harm to not only her, but her family. Whereas if she had been knowing herself along the way, tending to herself, y'all, we are not created to be doormats. That is not why we're here. Because then if everyone is a doormat, well, then it's just the mighty few who have enough ego to walk across everybody else. No, we are here. We exist. We were created for each one of us to fulfill on a unique purpose, a unique call. We are here because we are needed. Yes, but we ourselves are needed. Not to lie as a doormat, not knowing who we are, but actually to go inward and find those parts of us that are so uniquely made in the image of our creator to then go and contribute that to the rest of the world around us. Y'all, we need each other to be full, vibrant, alive, whole human beings. And we cannot do that apart from the work of going inward. And so, yes, the second mountain is the kind of end result, but it cannot come and take the place of the first. Perhaps we reorder and we go to the first after the second and then go back to the second like I did. Or maybe we started on the first mountain of kind of really oriented towards ourselves. And then we realize, man, there's so much more to life than just living for myself. So, whatever your order is, when we talk about the Knowing Show, getting to know ourselves, getting to know who we are and why we're here, it is for the purpose of love, for the purpose of filling our own cup that we can give from a place of overflow. So that when we give, there's not these silent strings attached that nobody knows about, that we're hoping to be seen, we're hoping to be recognized. And actually, us giving is a way of our own self validation, and we've placed our identity in what we do rather than who we are. And so, in essence, there's this attachment of identity in what we do, but also tethered to that person. So that if they leave, or if they no longer want to be in a relationship with us, or it just doesn't work out, or they pass away, our identity is so tethered to them that there's that actually that loss is compounded by our own lack of identity to begin with. So we're not simply grieving their life or grieving the loss of that relationship. We're grieving our own identity that was so deeply attached to them. So, for the reasons that we just mentioned, it is so, so, so incredibly important that we do this work, that we go inward, that we recognize, man, I am uniquely created for a purpose, for a reason. And so much of going inward is to discover what that is, to uncover and almost remember. You know, one of the things I was thinking about as this woman was talking about her work with human trafficking, I remember the very first time I first learned about human trafficking when I was 17 years old. And something like stirred within me at a molecular level, like a fight for the injustice of what this is. And as this kind of stirred within me when I was 17, I had no idea what the application would be. And even still to this day, you know, over a decade later, or I guess a decade and a half later, I'm still not sure what my involvement will be like at some point. Yet I know that there's a passion and a dream there. There's a call there because of my emotional reaction to it. But here's the thing, if we're void of emotion, if we're shut off from being able to access that aspect of our emotions, you know, on the Knowing Show, we talk about the human intelligence, and that includes intellectual, emotional, spiritual, and physical intelligence. And each one of those holds data. Each one remembers, each one holds insight into why we're here, who we're called to be, and even whose we are, remembering that kind of intimacy with our creator and returning to that part of us that perhaps even before the world told us who to be, we remember who we were brought into the world to be at, kind of like our origin state. And so when we return and we remember who we were as kids before who the world wanted us to be, we actually get a glimpse into that self, that person that we were created to be in the first place. We remember those dreams, those wants, those desires that were kind of pure and unadulterated by the world around us. They were uncorrupted, so to say. One of the things that I grew up really being perpetually afraid of was my own ego. Was, well, will I be ever become so consumed with myself that I will effectively push people away? And I just had this fear of what I would become. And I still have that today. I still have that. And I'm actually, I was just laying in bed last night and I was like, I want to talk to a therapist about this and get help with this, because I want to go deep and inward to understand how am I and why am I afraid of my own potential? Because I'm afraid of what could happen on the other side of it. So really, so much of the way that we show up in life is either powered by love, which is power and presence and a sound mind, where we're not being having that thought of fear over what might happen to me if I walk into my potential, what might happen to those around me if I do, Will I lose people I love as a result of me being strong and confident and brave and courageous to follow that calling on my life? Will they, by proxy, not like me? One of the times I felt most loved in my life was when I was hurting the most. And I remember after losing my husband, I was at this kind of intersection where I just felt so loved and carried by my family that I was afraid that by my own healing, they wouldn't find a need to be around me anymore, and they wouldn't love me like they did when I was really hurting. And so there's these fear blocks, and they block our potential. When I was at this point, again, it felt like an intersection. It felt like a crosshairs where it was like, okay, I have a choice to make. Either I'm going to pursue healing or I'm going to play the victim, because I know if I play the victim, I actually will get the love that I want and the connection that I want. And if I take responsibility, if I face every part, every ounce of what I contributed and did wrong in my marriage ending, well, then what would that look like? Would I still receive the love and compassion and care that I so desperately want? So there's two different powering sources effectively. It's like putting gas in the tank. And the gas that we can put in the tank of our own dreams and ambitions and pursuits in the world of what we do is predicated in the inner world of who we are, our inner being. Our being drives what we do. But that being is either fueled by fear or by love. And so if we hold these kind of deep-seated fears, like I was just talking about, of what happens if, and wondering when, and all those questions about what could happen in the future, so much of those fears are actually predicated in what happened in the past. We're not just imagining and making up something that we're afraid about that we've got no roots or grounding for. Either we saw it happen to somebody else, or we experienced ourselves and we never took care of that wound. And so fear effectively becomes the thing in the driver's seat so much of our days, because we're not aware of what's going on inside of us. The very first part of the definition of emotional intelligence is to be aware, and then to understand, and then to control, and then to convey one's own emotions. And on the other side of that is the ability to handle interpersonal relationships with wisdom and with empathy. But we cannot have those healthy relationships without a healthy self. And so in order for us to get first that healthy self, it's to be aware. What even is driving me in the first place? What's my core motivation? And actually, that motivation question is one of the very first things that even kind of brought me to emotional intelligence in the first place. It actually started with my business and looking at core motivations of our customers. What drives them to choose working with us? What drives them to want to buy and do business in that regard and purchasing? Because most purchases, 95%, according to Harvard, are derived by the subconscious, which is where our emotions live. So we make purchases off of our subconscious state. But if we don't know those emotional drivers for other people and for ourselves, if we're not aware of what's going on, if we don't know what gas is going in the tank, and if we're not aware of it, then we're not going to be able to understand, control, or convey it. And so it all starts, the very first thing, the potential bottleneck. We talk about what's bottlenecking your business, what's bottlenecking your growth. So much of the bottleneck begins and starts with being aware. And when we talk about what it means to be aware, it's like literally, when do I feel upset? When do I start having my emotions change? And it might be that your emotions are kind of underneath the surface. Think of an iceberg where you've got the little tip and then you've got this deep submerged wealth of an iceberg, and it's massive. But we only see the tip, and we see this tiny, tiny little bit that's an indicator to us of, oh, how am I doing emotionally? We're only aware of the tip, and so we're actually unable to understand and control all that lies beneath us. And so if we want to be in control of ourselves, if we want to have the authority and the power that is love in action to bring about real change in the world, we actually need to be in control of ourselves first. Do we even have the ability to have an impact on you and me, on our mind, on our soul, on our spirit? Or are we acting at the whim and wake of whatever emotion is at the helm of the ship? Whatever's going on underneath the surface of that iceberg. And that's the thing that's driving and orienting my day. And I have no control over my own mind. I have no control over my own emotions. Y'all, if we cannot know ourselves, how in the world can we dream to make an impact in the world? And I know that there are people who do that, in different regards. Sometimes people show up really, really well in business, whereas their personal life is falling apart. And the question for me in that situation or that environment is, well, we talked about this earlier, what is the why? Why are we doing what we're doing? Because if we're saying I'm building this empire for my family, yet my family life is falling apart while I do so, is that really the why? Maybe it's actually easier to avoid the relationships because we don't understand the emotion associated with that, that's causing us to want to turn a blind eye to the state of our family and go bury ourselves in work because it's more comfortable, because we know that. We know work, but we don't know ourselves and we don't know our family. So it's actually by proxy easier to immerse ourselves in something which we know. So if we want to see real change in our lives, we have to have the courage and the bravery to enter into, like Theodore Roosevelt talks about, the man in the arena in his speech in 1914 in Paris. Are we willing to go into the arena of that which we don't know and do the work to know, so that our families can thrive, we can make the impact then that we want to make? Because otherwise, that impact that we're trying to make in our business, it's almost like a facade because it's not rooted and grounded in the truth. And truth cascades every dimension of our lives. So if we're unhealthy in another area of our life, well, we better go and tend to that, because it cannot help but have ripple effects into the other areas. We are whole, integrated human beings, no matter how much we try to compartmentalize. And when I say that, what I mean is that we've got the left hemisphere of the brain, which so often is the thing driving at work and in business. But we've also got the right hemisphere of the brain, which so often is the one driving at home and in relationships. And the right hemisphere has been so undercultivated because we've placed so much value, especially in the Western culture, in the emphasis of business and of career and professional success, of accolades. Even the fact that there's been such a push for women going to work, and there's not a value at home anymore. There's not a value in raising children. There's not a value and honor for family. It's completely flipped on its head, and we're seeing the consequences of that with so many broken homes, so many broken families. And I'm hopeful that will change. I really, really am. And I think that one of the few ways that can produce that level of change is that we change. If we want the outcome to be different, we must change the input. To have a different output in our society, we need to have different people living in it. And so in order for us to become different, we have to know in order to then change. It's like that death and rebirth process. We see that all throughout creation, from the mother giving birth to the child, to the butterfly going and, the caterpillar going into the cocoon, and the butterfly emerging. Death and life is all around us. And so why should we think that we're saved from that process? It's the letting go and kind of like the shedding of those layers that have been built up over the years, the layers that kept us safe, the layers that we learned in childhood by watching people around us and learning how to be, rather than acting in accordance with the real integrity of who was I created to be in the first place. Y'all, there's something about returning to our original state. Michelangelo, when he was asked, how did you create David? He said, I removed the layers of who David was not. And in that process, he was able to uncover and call forth the sculpture of that incredible, one of a kind design and architect that had never been seen before at that time. And so if we want to, and this is a question, what do you want? Do you want to know who you are? Do you want to make a real impact in the world? Do you want to create? Do you want to live free? All of those questions underneath them come down to the original, Genesis question of, but are you willing to do the work to know who you are? Because all of that is possible. Creation and freedom and walking in your purpose and in your calling, all of that is possible. It's within our grasp. And I know this because I've experienced it, and I've seen so many others experience it too. I've watched a grown man, a beautiful, handsome, strong grown man, cry at a knowing retreat and to have this massive breakthrough so that now he can grow his business and love his family all the more because of something that happened to him when he was 8, 9 years old with his dad. That breakthrough got him free. He broke through it's like this veneer, this facade that we've been living behind, that we keep pushing up against. And we wonder why relationships are so hard, but it's because we're pushing up against these thin veneers. It's like this thin veil that we just can't push past, that is a past experience. And so then when we look at the future, dog's not happy. And then when we look at the future, we're looking at the future through this facade, through this veil. And then, of course, we're projecting our fear onto the future because we have something unresolved in the present. And it's all because of the past. So, yes, there's, thinking of all these people who are like, just close your eyes and meditate and imagine your future. I know that there is power in that. And are you imagining your future when you close your eyes through your subconscious fear? That's so, so, so important. We have to resolve the past in order to break free from it, to move into the future and all that's offered to us, all that's possible to us. And so with that, I want to jump into today's lesson. Just a quick recap for those of you who are new to the Knowing Show. We read through a daily lesson in A Course in Miracles. And I'm going to read through just a quick review of the previous ones. Lesson 151, all things are echoes of the voice of God. Lesson 152, the power of decision is my own. Lesson 153, in my defenselessness lies safety. Lesson 154, I am among the ministers of God. Lesson 155, I will step back and let him lead the way. Lesson 156, I walk with God in perfect holiness. 157, into his presence would I enter now. And today's lesson 158, which I need to go to. Here we go. Today I learned to give as I receive. What has been given you? The knowledge that you are in mind, and purely mind, sinless forever, wholly unafraid, because you were created out of love. Nor have you left your source, remaining as you were created. This was given you as knowledge which you cannot lose. It was given as well to every living thing, for by that knowledge only does it live. You have received all of this. No one who walks in the world but has received it. It is not this knowledge which you give, for that is what creation gave. All this cannot be learned. What then are you to learn to give today? Our lesson yesterday evoked a theme found early in the text. Experience cannot be shared directly in the way that vision can. The revelation that the Father and the Son are one will come in time to every mind. Yet it is that time determined by the mind itself, not taught. The time is set already. It appears to be quite arbitrary. Yet there is no step along the road that anyone takes but by chance. It has already been taken by him, although he has not yet embarked on it. For time but seems to go in one direction. We but undertake a journey that is over. Yet it seems to have a future still unknown to us. Time is a trick, a sleight of hand, a vast illusion in which figures come and go as if by magic. But there is a plan behind appearances that does not change. The script is written. When experience will come to end your doubting has been set. For we but see the journey from the point at which it ended. Looking back on it, imagining we make it once again, reviewing mentally what has gone by. A teacher does not give experience because he did not learn it. It revealed itself to him at its appointed time. But vision is his gift. This he can give directly, for Christ's knowledge is not lost because he has a vision he can give to anyone who asks. The Father's will and his are joined in knowledge, yet there is a vision which the Holy Spirit sees because the mind of Christ beholds it too. Here is the joining of the world of doubt and shadows made with the intangible. Here is a quiet place within the world made holy by forgiveness and by love. Here there are contradictions reconciled. For here the journey ends. Experience, unlearned, untaught, unseen, is merely there. It is beyond our goal, for it transcends what needs to be accomplished. Our concern is with Christ's vision. This we can attain. Christ's vision has one law. It does not look upon a body and mistake it for the Son whom God created. It beholds a light beyond the body, an idea beyond what can be touched, a purity undimmed by errors, pitiful mistakes, and fear. Oops, my alarm went off. Sorry. It sees no separation, and it looks on everyone, on every circumstance, all happenings and all events, without the slightest fading of the light it sees. This can be taught and must be taught by all who achieve it. It requires but the recognition that the world cannot give anything that faintly can compare with this in value, nor set up a goal that does not merely disappear when this has been perceived. And this you give today. See no one as a body. Greet him as the Son of God he is, acknowledging that he is one with you in holiness. Thus are his sins forgiven. For Christ has vision that has power to overlook them all. In his forgiveness they are gone. Unseen by one, they merely disappear because the vision of the holiness that lies beyond them comes to take their place. It matters not what form they took, nor how enormous they appeared to be, nor who seemed to be hurt by them. They are no more, and all effects they seem to have are gone with them, undone and never to be done again. Thus do you learn to give as you receive, and thus Christ's vision looks on you as well. This lesson is not difficult to learn if you remember to see in your brother you but see yourself. If he be lost in sin, so must you be. If you see light in him, your sins have been forgiven by yourself. Each brother whom you meet today provides another chance to let Christ's visions shine on you and offer you the peace of God. It matters not when revelation comes, for that is not of time. Yet time has still one gift to give, in which true knowledge is reflected in a way so accurate, its image shares its unseen holiness. Its likeness shines with its immortal love. We practice seeing with the eyes of Christ today, and by the holy gifts we give, Christ's vision looks upon ourselves as well. Y'all, what a beautiful reminder that today it's looking at others and seeing, like they're a mirror for us. Just how God created us in his image. Our brothers and sisters are an image for us of ourselves. And we look, it's like we look at them and we see who we can be, and we call them forth by proxy. So there's this thing of like knows like. So if we're seeing something, it's the law of attraction. If we're seeing something we don't like, well, how is that reflecting back to us? Maybe something we don't like in ourselves. And same goes the reverse. What if we're seeing beauty in them? Then that probably means that we're seeing beauty in ourselves. Y'all, I'm going to jump here in the chat. Let me see how to do that well. I'm on my phone, but I'm also got my laptop right here next to me, and I'm going to pull that up because it's going to be easier to look at the chat. Just looking through. Joe, hello. Mr. Anderson, good to see you. Constantine, hello. Joe says you can turn off your pain at will. You can heal yourself at will. Interesting. Lucianda, hello. No. KLW, good morning. It's good to see you. Ahmad, good morning. Amado, are you? I don't know what you're asking. Sammy, good to see you, my friend. For those of you who don't know Sammy, he's a dear friend of the Knowing Show. He joined us a couple years ago, actually, when it was actually the anniversary of his accident, which he's since been diagnosed as a C2 quadriplegic. And so, Sammy, we love you, and we're with you always, my friend. It's so good to see you, and just love you so much. Thank you for being here. Bang Tap, hello. Good to see you. Laksha Shaya, hello. I recommend everyone to do meditation. I have heard such good things about that. I have heard such good things. E3K, the cat, good morning. Transcendental meditation is good. The ones where you're just observing your breathing or observe what's going on around you with your eyes closed. Mr. Anderson said that. I've heard that's so helpful. Jed, good morning. James, Evan, good morning. Wayne, hello, my friend. Singh, Japan. I grew up in Maryland, actually, in the States. Henry Walder, good morning. Punch Right, good morning. Just scrolling here. Mr. Anderson's, the ones where you are observed what's around you or just focus on your breathing don't really get you anywhere. But with TM, you go deep within yourself and let your thoughts fade away. I've heard so many wonderful things about transcendental meditation. I think that's the way that it's said. Sai, good morning. I'm glad to see you. Wonderful. Y'all, thank you so much. KLW says, have you had your coffee? No, I need to go do that. Y'all, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I actually need to jump off. I have something that I'm going to, so I'm not able to stay on much longer, but thank you so much for joining. I will be back on tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Pacific. I have a flight tomorrow. I'll have to confirm. 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern is the time, but I have a flight in the morning and it might be right then. So it might be actually earlier. It might be an 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific. So we'll see, but I'll go ahead and schedule it out. Y'all, thank you so much for joining. I hope you have a wonderful Sunday. I will see you tomorrow morning.